Sexism is the common enemy of both masculism and feminism. Sexist views combine men and women into socially constricted roles that are oppressive, as individuals are constrained by expectations of behaviour taught within ideological state apparatuses such as film. Biologically essentialist views are used to justify this oppression, channeling males and females into gender-specific roles and habitual ideals, which order and maintain the status quo in society. Through representation, these views are naturalized so they are accepted as given and inevitable. For example, the standard model of the male represents aggression, strength, leadership, and the lack of emotion as informed by the male's superior biological strength. This directs men into a dominant role in society, maintaining patriarchal ideology. Men who transgress from this structure by being weak, emotional, or subordinate to the female can be fetishized, sexualized, or reduced to an obstacle that must be overcome by a more manly subject. Women, meanwhile, are constrained within the submissive role required for patriarchal dominance, and are portrayed as weak, unstable, and emotional. In the past, females who transcended this role would also be represented as transgressive, as in film noirs, where a femme fatale character allows for subsequent punishment and denunciation for her power over men. Alternatively or simultaneously, the female would also be fetishized and sexualized, where the female protagonist transcends her role by becoming the hero, potentially threatening the patriarchal order of power. Her threat is often neutralized through the sexualization and fetishization of her image. Therefore, ideological notions of gender are reinforced and affirmed to strengthen social structures of role and status. Feminist movements have reduced the dominance of mainstream views in society, however. Aiding female subjectivity by working towards equity between genders and eroding the structures that constrain the female in her submissive role. Feminism has contributed to a postmodern culture with its projection of alternative narratives that reject all-embracing systems such as patriarchy, by refiguring female identity. Women, increasingly aware of their rights and choices, are allowed more freedom to form an identity beyond the oppressive demands of patriarchy and express their concerns so that they can initiate social change. The female has begun to enter traditional realms of the male and assert her own dominance by embodying traditional male characteristics or by preserving conventional female traits. Popular feminist awareness has created the anti-sexist man, who tries to abide by non-sexist ideologies in response to feminist pressure, which asks that the female be seen on equal terms, aiding her entrance into the realms of employment. Women, therefore, are less likely to be constrained within the submissive role required for patriarchal dominance. It can be conceded, however, that the process of full female equality is still progressing, with the notion of a glass ceiling evident at higher levels of business and politics. The increased awareness of male subjectivity and structures of control and authority makes sexism more noticeable and therefore challengeable on behalf of the female in the post-feminist climate. Feminism has provided a relief from the pressures of gender expectations that are dictated by biologically essentialist views, as it levels accusations of sexism against those who persist with oppressive notions of femininity. This is no bad thing, of course, but in the absence of a male movement, do men have the same freedom and protection from sexism? Are they able to access the female realm naturalistically? The answers to these questions may reveal sexism against men and highlight a detrimental form of oppression against the male subject. Masculism is an approach that identifies and examines inequalities in society to reveal prejudice against men. It responds to feminism and aspires to provide a balance that ensures neither gender is oppressed by equivalently concentrating on male experience. Masculism does not reverse feminism by stating society has matriarchal dominance, but posits a society of both matriarchal and patriarchal rule. Therefore, the notion is that the world is not sexist, but it is bisexist. Both sexists are bound within restrictive roles. For example, traditionally, his role is to protect the family and hunt for food, while she creates a family and gathers food. However, feminists populate the critical discourse with approaches that counter sexism against women. There is little written on sexist, exploitative representations of the male. There is much discussion on masculinity and how the male is represented, but only a small number of these critiques are in a truly masculist vein. As a result, the feminist view that women see the world as patriarchal, sexist and male-dominated has become the whole picture, so that the world is patriarchal, sexist and male-dominated. The fact that feminism is portrayed as the whole picture is the starting point for much sexism against men, and masculism needs to have parity of esteem with this approach if true equality between the sexes is to be had. Feminist critics reveal how women are represented, to be objectified and merely looked at by the male, and that critique of female representation reveals sexism. This contributes to the challenging of previously naturalised forms of oppression. Such challenges have been absorbed into postmodern culture, and the previously marginalised voice of the female can be privileged. However, this deprivileges the male voice in his lack of response, risking an imbalance between the genders, and as a possible all-embracing female narrative that oppresses the male to a greater extent in the future, as the feminist view is the whole picture. The multitude of critical approaches in a postmodern culture should ensure the masculist approach's inclusion. Yet, this currently is not the case beyond a few exceptions, and these are often called out as extreme views, which supports my argument that there is an imbalance here. I will begin to try and address this imbalance, providing a critique of oppressive representations of the male. The lack of the masculist approach in academia has made it too comfortable for the male to be objectified without challenge, and guides them into oppressive role structures. A similarly argumentative style to feminist writers needs to be adopted in order to confront these oppressions head-on, and encourage an active consideration of how the male is represented in a post-feminist climate. This will provide new evidence so that the male can point to any perceived oppression with added support. Marginalised masculist views and concerns will be foregrounded to adapt theoretically grounded frameworks to offer a new approach and highlight the validity of a masculist perspective. The eventual aim is to increase the awareness of sexist representations of the male and open the door for others to challenge these representations so that the masculist approach can be absorbed into the discourse and the notion of gender equality can progress, as feminism will no longer be the whole picture as it is balanced against male concerns. Masculism is sometimes termed masculinism, where it is used in critical discourse. However, the term masculism seems more suited in response to feminism, as it follows the same word structure and is simply shorter, more accessible as a term. Neither term has been fully integrated into popular vocabulary, and they are absent from many dictionaries, which in itself reveals the imbalance against men. I will work towards remedying that by appropriating the term masculism.